family, friends, Fidelity. We'll return to Proverbs and we'll start from verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, and let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave and whole, as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. Let me give you a clearer understanding. The fear of Adonai is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. My son, heed the discipline of your father, and do not abandon the teaching of your mother. They will be a garland to grace your head, a medal of honor for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, don't go along with them. Suppose they say, come with us. We'll ambush somebody and kill him. We'll waylay some harmless soul just for fun. We'll swallow him alive like Sheol, whole like those who descend to the pit. Listen to this. We'll find everything he has of value, and we'll fill our homes with loot. Throw in your lot with us. We'll share a common purse. My son, don't go along with them. Don't set foot on their path. Their feet run to evil. They rush to shed blood. For in vain is the net baited, if any bird can see it. Rather, they are ambushing themselves to shed their own blood, waylaying themselves. So are the ways of all greedy for gain. So are the ways of all greedy for gain. It takes the lives of those who get it. Now, in having read that, you get a totally different understanding from one translation to another. And the one that I just read from you is more applicable into what we're dealing with today. Saints, we've come to a time where playing church, we're all bored with it. Now, many of us won't state that. And some of us have, we think, gained some status in playing church. But overall, it has profited us very little as a whole. I'm talking we. I'm talking us. Saints, it's time to wake up. It's time it's time for us to take responsibility for what has come into our lives and has set up shop. And this thing is visiting everybody, believer and non-believer. This is not just a United States dilemma. This is a creation dilemma. And it is visiting each and every one of us. Nobody is exempt. You can't hide behind what your so-called title is in life, what your so-called title is even in what we call kingdom. You've got to stand up and give an accounting. You've got to, along with accepting your free will, because many of us are living the result of willful actions that we've taken that have not only affected our lives, but have affected other people's lives. Today is the day of responsibility. See, along with free will, along with living your life, comes responsibility. Choices, decisions that you've made, that we've made. You know, many are of the persuasion, hey, these are the last days. Maybe. But I have a question for those that constantly say that. And this is not to throw water. What are you going to do in the meantime while you're waiting for the days to come to an end? The projects that you're working on. If it's all going to end soon, then what are we doing? What are we doing if it's all going to end tomorrow? We need to have a paradigm shift. And that's a 50-cent word, for we need to change our way of thinking. We need to change our way of the way we live, the way we've been programmed to live, even the way we have what we call church. There are a lot of voices out there, and I'm not against technology. What helps me continue to deal with it is, yes, I'll throw, and I believe, more church talk, I believe that technology is for us. I do. But what are you giving your ear to? What are you giving your eyes over to? Again, see, you got to be responsible in where you're getting your information. There's a lot of information out there. But saints, a lot of that information is bogus. It's been so skillfully mixed with bits and pieces of truth. But a lot of it is somebody's opinion. I talked about last time, I brought up journalists, news reporters. And, it doesn't matter. The major networks, cable news networks, social media, there's very little news actually being reported. See, the news doesn't have a slant. The news is actually reporting what happened. And some of you are old enough to remember the TV show Dragnet, where the investigating officer would always say, just the facts. Well, see, that's the way news needs to be, just the facts. But in the society that we have today, and it's not just, again, in the great Satan, the United States, everybody, it appears, is putting their slant on the facts. They're giving the facts, but it's entangled with their editorial or news opinion. We've gotten so now, you can't make a health issue a health issue. Now politics is in the health issue. In being a responsible believer, notice how I phrase that, because there are a lot of irresponsible believers. And we've done a lot of damage in local houses, and we've done a lot of damage on a national level by being irresponsible. Because of the avenues of information we tune into. See, it's every parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, everybody that's had the pleasure of bringing another life into this situation. You have a responsibility to be careful about what you have your children listening to and what you're listening to. I mean, here it's always been stated that, truth will rise from the ground. Well, the more we dig and the more we study and the more we dig and the more we study, we're starting to question a lot of the very foundational teachings that we've indulged ourselves in for years, decades. And we're having to take a second look at just about everything and everybody. And again, it's amazing. Now, some would say it's coincidental, but 2020, if you have perfect vision and you don't wear glasses, most physicians will say, well, you've got 20/20 vision. And I said to you, and I still hold on to this premise, this is a year of not only self-examination, but you're to begin to see people for who they really are. because your very life depends on it. You see, again, this thing about church, it's covered a lot of motives. It's covered a lot of deception. And I'll tell you, man, if we don't take some things more seriously, it could cost us our life. And for those that really, truly want to get things done, accomplished, and move on, because, see, there's more to life than just having a place that we can come to and we can worship and we can have church and we can have a high time, as we like to say, in the Lord. All of that's fine. But we're ignoring, it's as if we've got our heads in the sand about what's going on around us. And I've said in times past, and I was not taking a swipe at anybody. But if there's a group of people on the face of the earth, it's believers, we really need to know more about what's going on around us. We really do. We need to carve out some time out of our schedules and look at what's going on and how this thing could possibly affect not only your family, but other people that you say you love. Are we really doing ourselves a service by putting everything, oh, God got this, Messiah got this, relieving ourselves of our responsibility? Many of us, we're hiding behind church. And I'm not knocking church. I'm not knocking that. But we got a responsibility. We've got to take life a little more seriously than thinking that, hey, I got it all figured out. No, we don't. Nobody knows what's going on, even be they call themselves prophets, be they call themselves financial analysts. They're all giving their best guess. But you know what? I'm not knocking that. Somebody got to do some thinking. Somebody's got to do some thinking. Saints, it's been shared in this house years ago that there would be a financial shift. And it was shared not by somebody that considers themselves a prophet. And it was by no great revelation of that particular individual. You know, it just came out of the heart of somebody that was like, why do we have such a hard time accumulating wealth? Now, I know that doesn't sound very deep and spiritual and spooky and all the stuff we like to delve into. But I don't know whether you realize it or not, but it's more going on than just the pandemic. Our very way of living. Some of you are homeowners. Some of you are renting. Some of us are homeless. And not all of that is by misfortune. Some people are homeless because they choose to be homeless. And I'm not speaking as one with no compassion, but if you ask enough questions, and that's something we don't do. We don't ask enough questions before we make a decision about something. We need to ask more questions. But if you've ever had the opportunity, as you were reaching in your pocket to, buy them a hamburger or whatever, if you ever struck up a conversation, sometimes you'll find that they belong to a family. And if they're comfortable enough with you, some of them will share. Basically, what happened was my parents or my caretaker or whoever was providing a roof over my head did not agree with the life choices that I made, and they said, if you're going to continue to stay here, you can't do X, Y, Z. And because that individual thought they were of age and could make their own decisions, which they could because they have a free will, they decided, okay, I'll leave. And this has happened in families. Sometimes we carry ourselves in such a way where your parents just say, look, Barry, hey, if that's how you're going to live, you're going to do that out here. I'm not going to finance this foolishness. You got to go. And so often in defiance, I'm out of here. I'm my own man. I'm my own woman. And in America, we like to say, they're self-made. And I'm telling you, there's nobody that's self-made. Nobody. I don't care how financially successful they are. Somebody helped them that didn't really know them. Those of you that are homeowners, that underwriter that approved your loan, they didn't know you. They looked on a file that had a bunch of numbers. It had your credit history. It had how long you've been on your job. They made a determination based on that. It had nothing to do with, this is a child of the Most High, and none of that happened. Now, that's the way you might want to tell it. Particularly if you in church, the heavens opened up, and they saw from on high that I was so deserved, The things we say when we come together. Now, am I saying that the Most High didn't? He had a hand in it. You got favor. He said you'd have favor with man also. But for a lot of those underwriters, it was purely a business decision. Purely a business decision. For some of us, our race did come into play. You got the loan, but you might have paid a higher rate than somebody that don't look like you. Yes, but you still got the loan. We complain a lot. And we have adopted a spirit of entitlement, just like other people that we complain about. I'm telling you. Again, if you've ever stopped to give somebody a few dollars and start talking to them, and you listen to their story and you say, maybe I can help you. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. And then you outline and say, with what you've shared, well, then I might try this, and this. And the first thing out of a lot of people's mouths in this country, because I haven't really lived anywhere else, I'm not doing that. You ever stopped and asked somebody, hey, well, you holding a sign, you say, we'll work for food. Hey, you can mow my lawn. It's hot. I get you plenty of water, get you something to drink. You ever stopped and asked one of them, come on, I'll take you. I don't live that far from here. They don't go. Many of them won't go. Now I understand. If it's a young lady and she's standing out there, come on. I'm not going to ask her to go cut a grass. But a strapping man standing out there talking about holding a sign, will work for food. And I'm saying, okay, you can come cut my grass. I'm going to keep you hydrated. I'm going to feed you, and I'm going to pay you. I haven't had one yet. So, well, okay, bet. Come on. I'll go. And that's not something that I do haphazardly. I've told you all, when I'm by myself, I'm maybe not the nicest person because people are mean. People are mean, deceptive, greasy, and sometimes you can be putting yourself in danger if you're doing something with the wrong motive. See, when I pull over and I ask them, will you cut my grass? I meant it. I wasn't trying to play some kind of game with them. I wasn't trying to say, well, let me see if he for real. And I wasn't doing that. I didn't want to cut my grass, but it needed cutting. And he's holding up a sign, we'll work for food. What does this have to do with Proverbs? Everything. Everything. We've got to get it. When I talked about that paradigm shift, I'm talking about for almost work on, because it's not an overnight process, work on unchurching yourself. Because a lot of things that we get in disputes about, that's church stuff. If you drill down into it, it's church stuff. Somebody wants things their way. And I'm telling you, man, and let me say this. I'm learning to be more apolitical because, see, in this climate, a lot of us are doing things based on what we think is our political persuasion. I said this when Bush II was in office, and we know how he was maligned by those that did not vote for him and by those that did vote for him. They talked about his IQ or lack thereof. And we used to have the men's meetings back there, and it was a good time, and I missed those. But I said back then, I said, listen, that's the toughest job in the world. Let me say that again. Being president of these United States, I don't care who it is, be it a he or a she, toughest job in the world. That this is not an endorsement of anybody. Tough job. Being a pastor, a real pastor. I'm not talking about somebody that's just got a church because it's a source of income. I'm not talking about that type of pastor. And there's a lot of them, and I'm not throwing rocks. I'm talking about a pastor that has a heart for the people that they serve. That's a tough job. You got it's a thankless job. It's a thankless job. You dealing with a whole lot of church folk with a whole lot of church issues, and everybody wants you to see it their way. Just like, again, on a larger scale, the person that's occupying the White House, he's got groups, organizations, and again, this is a apolitical statement, regardless of who's in there. That's a tough job. And you'll never please everybody. People gonna talk about you. Some of the things they say about you are true. A lot of the things they say are not true, regardless of who is in there. It's a no-win situation. When President Obama took office, a lot of us was, God has answered our prayer. And I want to say today, because, I'm not a preacher, so I'm going to say this. He may not be as enthralled in what's going on in the United States as a lot of our religious leaders would like to think. I'm of the mindset heaven is not predicated on what the temperature is in the United States. I think heaven's a whole lot greater. That's just me. That's just me. This coming November, saints, I would encourage you, again, this is not a political statement, exercise the privilege to vote, because a lot of people got hit upside the head, and a lot of people had a tough time just for you to be able to exercise that right. And the one thing that we learn in this country, whether you are an immigrant by choice or you're like most of us, we are immigrants by force. And there's a distinct difference because, see, a lot of immigrants that are here by choice, they don't really understand where you're coming from. They think they do, particularly if they look like you. I've said to you before, there's a lot of information on the internet. And after the service is over, I have some sites I'd like for you all to go to, and we'll talk about that when I get to 15 minutes after this is over to share some things with you to prepare us for what's coming. But I'm here to say, even the way we view and the way that Africa, the continent of Africa, has been discussed. I don't know if many of you know this, but there's a schism. There's a schism between Africans and African Americans or Black Americans or whatever you want to call yourself. And along with the discussion about social justice that's taking place in a lot of circles, and I pray it comes to this city too, and who knows, maybe it'll start between some of the pastors and preachers, but it may not. It may start in the schools. I know some of the school boards have had conversations, real conversations, uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. But I was looking at some material this morning before I came down, because I want to touch on that a little later on this afternoon. I was somewhat surprised, but that schism is a little deeper than most of us may think. In fact, when we talk about Africa, we talk about Africa as a whole. Well, the people that live in the different countries that make up that continent, let me put it to you this way. An Ethiopian sees him or herself as an Ethiopian first. If they from the Congo, they see themselves as somebody from the Congo first. But here in America, we say all of Africa. They don't see themselves that way. And that was kind of surprising to me. But then the more and more I started looking at this stuff, and I'm like, man. And it's the young people, younger people. Those, some of them are, I don't know, maybe they're a junior in high school, and some of them are, maybe up to 25, and some of them may be older, but I'm fascinated by what I'm hearing, and to be fair, they're interviewing Black Americans, and they're viewing Africans that are in this country, and some of you that went to a black school. How did you treat the Africans on campus? Did we really associate with them? Did they really want to associate with us? What do they really think about us? Really? Have you ever had an opportunity to sit down and talk to? There's a large movement right now. A lot of us, a lot of African Americans, I'm going back to the motherland. A lot of athletes, they're buying land over there, and they're saying, I don't care, swamp land, just give me anything. In search of reconnecting, as we like to say in America. And the review has been mixed. You see, some Africans feel like the 300 or 400 years, they look at us, and some of them might say, well, you're an American. And in some circles, that's welcomed. Because a lot of them have come here, gone to school here, but they've gone back. A lot of them have gone to school here and they have stayed. What does all of this have to do with Proverbs? It changes the way we live, the way we think, the decisions we make on a daily basis. That's what Torah is for. Torah is for everyday life, not just Sabbath, not just midweek Bible study, not just when you got a special program going on in your church. That's where the disconnect is in most of our lives. My son, heed the discipline of your father, and do not abandon the teaching of your mother. They will be a garland to grace your head, a medal of honor for your neck. My son, if sinners entice you, don't go along with them. Suppose they say, come with us. We'll ambush somebody and kill him. We'll waylay some harmless soul. Saints, we got to be careful. We got to be careful. And you know, even I believe it's in the Brit Hadashah, and that's the New Testament. It said, what we're to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. And I'll tell you, man, that's not easy. Because a lot of us live in environments that's full of serpents. But we've churched our way around the fact it's almost like, oh no, Jesus gonna take care of everything. Stop thinking that way. I'm not saying that he ain't for you, yeah. But get off the sidelines and get in the game. Get engaged in life for real. Stop playing at it. It's serious. It's serious. This is a time of sober thinking, not so much emotional. Emotional thinking, emotional decision making has kept us 3 steps back as a group. And individually, it's slowed the progress for a lot of us. We've got to change our way of thinking. We've got to change the way we're studying. Relook at everything. Revisit the foundation of your faith and see what it's really saying, and stop regurgitating what you've heard. Get in there for yourself and ask for understanding. We'll waylay some harmless soul just for fun. Just for fun. And saints, sometimes we get taken off cue. I'm going to say this. Hold your rocks. Because I'll tell you now, I'm not that delivered. You throw a rock at me, I'm going to throw one back at you. So you've been warned. Is that the Christian thing to do? No, it is not. No, it is not. So don't throw a rock at me. Keep your eye on the ball. This pandemic is forcing all of us to take a second look, not only at our lives, but the lives of those in our circle. And I'm not saying be distrustful, but be truthful to yourself about yourself, because that'll help you to be more true in what you see in others. It won't be shaped by what you think about them, because see, we all have given each one of us enough evidence by how we have lived before one another. even the things that you may not be aware that others are aware about you. Because, see, some people know some things and they have kept their mouth shut because they have felt this ain't going to help this situation. This will exacerbate the situation, which is a 50-cent word for make it worse. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think their heart is in the right place. And I know, we've had flags removed and they're tearing down statues, and most of the statues that are being taken down are not necessarily being taken down by us. Not necessarily. And all of that is okay. But really what we're after, the group does want social justice. And you have a lot of corporations. I mean, you go online, big name corporations, hashtag Black Lives Matter. And that's nice. And you know what? They even give large sums of money. Some of them give large sums of money. And in our community, if you are of what we would call celebrity status and you don't say something in relation to that, you're scorned. And see, there's a schism going on because if you're not careful, just like the narrative gets changed, if they're not careful, their narrative will be changed. Now, I don't know if many of you know this, but George Soros, who's a billionaire, he funded Black Lives Matter. I don't know if you are aware of that or not. But, folks, at the end of the day, my prayer is that they will realize what they're going after. Yes, it is. Stop killing our folk, of course. No doubt. But we also want economic equality. And I know a lot of, oh, here you go, At the end of the day, particularly in America, the great Satan, you will know that somebody's really for you when they're really willing to say, you have been disadvantaged for almost 400 years. And things are not equal. Things are not level. And yes, we have bombed other nations, and we have financially restored other nations, most nations. Are you really going to do something financially? I'm not talking about writing a $100 million check. And I'm giving this to the whatever black. And we go, yay, yay. We'll take it. But what about the individual families? See, our concern should also be what can I do today, now, that will help all my people, not just a select few? We got to change the way we think. We got to change the way we see life. Listen, just because you can pay your mortgage and pay your car note and occasionally go out to dinner, buy a new outfit, what about the rest of your folks? What about the rest of your family? What about and more importantly, what about the rest of your bloodline? How are they faring? See, you know, a lot of people that are spearheading the Black Lives Matter movement, it's not for them that they're out there. A lot of them realize, I'm set. I'm set. They're thinking about the people coming behind them. A lot of them, that's who they're thinking about. And if you notice again, a lot of other groups, and again, I want to be careful because I'm not trying to race bait or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm saying if they're not careful, their eye will be taken off the ball. We've got to, when you're talking health, stick with health. If you're talking politics, stick with politics. If you're talking the reason why an organization is going forward and what is the thrust behind it, stay on point. Don't get distracted, regardless of what package it comes in. Well, how can I do that? By staying with the Torah. Again, don't just study it like you would history or geometry or algebra or whatever. Stop doing that. That's not benefiting us that much. Well, how do I do this? Put it in your thinking. Are you telling me that when you're out, people don't come to you? Hey, Barry, let's go do this. Let's go. Hey, man, I can't right now. Man, I got something else I got to do. Oh, but come on, I ain't seen you in a long time, da-da-da. Hey, Now, if it presents itself and you can have meaningful dialogue and you're not talking a bunch of foolishness, of course. See, this is the year. See, when I'm talking about examining yourself and others around you, that includes not only family. Family should be first, but friendships too. Associations. All of us need to do, let me check what's going on here. Because see, the people around in your life, they have an influence. And that influence can be good or bad. Is it that serious, Barry? Yes, it is. Wake up out of your slumber. We're steadily losing ground. Throw in your lot with us. We'll share a common purse. Come on, man. You in this group. You in this ministry. You in this whatever. Look at the organizations and or fellowships you belong to. How much of a part are you really? What purpose does it serve, or what purpose are you serving in it? These are the questions you need to ask yourself, all of us. Why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, throw in your lot with us. We'll share a common purse. And then the author says, my son, don't go along with them. Don't set foot on their path. See, sometimes when people are about to pull something off, they need help. I can't do this by myself. And guess what? That's true. A lot of success we can't do alone. Even Messiah had some help. So why do we think, well, you know, I can do this? And then two people, we can do this. It's going to be tough. I'm not going to say you can. Maybe you can. But at what cost? You know, we used to say a long time ago, hey, man, count the cost. A lot of times we don't. We just, okay, I'll go, hey, somebody say, Jesus, count me in. Don't even know what it's about. Count me in. And a lot of stuff's been done that's kind of shady using that name. Because oftentimes we were just playing church. Their feet run to evil. They rush to shed blood. And let me say something. Just because I just read shed blood, listen. You don't have to physically stick a knife in somebody to shed blood. We learned a long time ago to embarrass somebody, cause the blood to rush to their face. That's akin to murder. Tricking people. That's a little more insidious than we might think. For in vain is the net baited, if any bird can see it. In other words, if not only if any bird, if anybody can see it. A lot of nets out there. We need to learn how to navigate our way around them. And a lot of times, church has been the very net we got caught up in. And again, I ain't against church. But I'm against a lot of church stuff that go down. Because it's working against us. It's impeding progress. If you're not careful, the vision that you say you have, it will become stale. And what will happen? Over time, folks that's got the vision, they'll die off. Then what do you have? Saints, we need to learn how to make our time count. Am I saying you got to be serious 24 hours? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Every day, from my perspective, is not a battle. I'm not in a battle with the adversary every day. Some days are wonderful. Some days are uplifting. Man, some days you can soar to high heights. And I know, man's days are full of trouble, da-da-da-da. You know, I know. I've heard all of that. But where does our responsibility come in this? We're going to throw everything on him. Oh, cast your cares upon me. You know, I mean, not everything. Listen, choices that you've made in life, there's responsibility that follow you until you are put in the ground. You don't get to, okay, Jesus. We need to stop doing that. See it all the way through. You made the decision to do it. See it all the way through. I forget who it was, but it was one of the top guys said, and when he had done all he had done, basically said he's laid down, crossed his feet, and went on. Now, wouldn't that be a glorious way to go? Oh, my goodness. Oh, I'm sorry. God bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until I have the privilege to come before you again, Pastor, will you come?